Alright guys, today I'll be giving my thoughts on some of the players who have entered the transfer portal and also the entire concept of the transfer portal. I'll also be talking about the crazy decision made by Travis Hunter towards the end. Before I get into the video, please remember to like and share the video as that helps the channel to grow. Now let's get into it. So if you've been keeping up with college football at all lately, you know that there have been a lot of players to enter the transfer portal and have even already transferred schools. If I'm talking about the whole concept of transferring, I'd say that in short, it's practically identical to NFL free agency, which I'm totally okay with because I think that it makes college football much more interesting. Some people see it as a bad thing, and I can see why, but I believe that if a player doesn't want to play at the school that they're at and has the opportunity to play at another or better school, then they should be able to do that as soon as possible. I guess some negatives that could be argued is that players shouldn't give up on their team if their team has a bad year or if they have a bad year statistically. And the people that argue that have a point, but each player's situation is different, so I think that you should fully understand what a player's situation is before you give your opinion on what they should do. So those are my thoughts on the concept in whole, and now for specific players. Off the top of my head, the most notable guys I can think of in the transfer portal right now are Spencer Rattler, Quinn Ewers, Jamal Gibbs, Bo Nix, Keenan Sexton, and Max Johnson. Starting off with Spencer Rattler, he has just recently committed to South Carolina, which I think is a pretty good spot for him right now. I also have some strong opinions about Spencer, which are that he is an asshole. I don't know how many of y'all watched the documentary on Netflix, QB1 Beyond the Lights, but in that show, he was just super cocky and thought he was the best QB on earth, and was especially an ass to his backup QB for no reason. So that being said, it's probably easy to concur that I don't like him very much, so when he was benched for a freshman in the game versus Texas, it felt pretty good. Speaking of him getting benched, I also think that he's extremely overrated. In both of his two starting seasons, he's been a preseason Heisman candidate, but by the end of both seasons, he is just severely underperformed. So overall, I don't like Spencer Rattler as a person or as a player, but he might do good at South Carolina. We'll see. The next player is Quinn Ewers, who was the #1 high school player in the nation in the 2021 class. He ended up leaving a semester early to go practice with Ohio State after he committed there and was with the team all of this season. But I think after CJ Stroud became a Heisman finalist and had the season that he had, Quinn realized he probably wouldn't be the starter in the next coming years. So I think that transferring was definitely the right move for him. The starting quarterback for Texas this year was Casey Thompson, and he had kind of a mediocre season, which means that he'll probably be coming back to Texas next year, which could set up a QB battle between Quinn and Casey. I think that it's realistic that Quinn ends up beating Casey for the QB1 spot if that battle ends up happening. So Texas could be a good move for him. All that being said, I really don't know what to expect from Quinn Ewers because we have yet to see him play in an actual college football game. Next we have Jamal Gibbs, who has been in the transfer portal longer than any of these guys. I don't know exactly how long, but I think it was like a month or so back when he announced that he would be transferring. I think this guy will be lethal wherever he goes because he's extremely versatile. This season as a freshman at Georgia Tech, he was third in the country in all-purpose yards with 746 rush yards, 330 receiving yards, and 589 kickoff return yards. He was a 4-star running back coming out of high school, and it's most likely that he's going to transfer to Alabama since 24/7 Sports has crystal balled him there. To be honest, I don't think this would be the best move for him since Alabama's running back room is pretty crowded with guys like Jason McClellan, Roydell Williams, and Trey Sanders. But if Jamal believes he can beat those guys out and get meaningful playing time, then all power to him. We also have Bo Nix, who entered the transfer portal. I think when Bo came into Auburn that the expectations placed on him were so high that there's no way he could have lived up to what people were expecting of him. Yes, he was the #1 dual threat QB in the country coming out of high school and has not lived up to that hype, but I think the hate he gets from Auburn fans is just a little unwarranted. He had a good freshman year winning SEC Freshman of the Year in 2019, which I think may have laid the foundation for the crazy expectations that were put on him, and obviously since then, he has yet to live up to those expectations. But after he was injured and people saw how TJ Finley played, they probably appreciated him a little bit more. After this year, I just had a gut feeling that he was not going to stay at Auburn, but I didn't know if he was going to maybe declare for the NFL draft or transfer, but he ended up choosing to transfer. I have no clue where Bo will go or even where he could possibly go, but I think transferring was the right thing for him to do. Hopefully he finds a good school and is able to build his draft stock for his senior year. Next we have Kedon Slovis, who had one of the best starts to a career you can ask for. In his freshman year in 2019, he threw for over 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. He was a bright spot on the USC team and was thought to hopefully turn the program around. But ever since his freshman year, he has not been able to put up the same numbers or productivity. In 2020, he only played in 6 games and threw for under 2,000 yards, and then this past season he only played in 9 games because he got injured in November. And his injury paved the way for the rise of freshman Jackson Dart, who has filled in for Keenan better than most expected. I think the decision to transfer was a good one for Keenan because, in my eyes, the USC fan base and maybe even the program altogether have moved on to Jackson Dart. I don't know what he's looking for in a school, but hopefully he can get the most out of his last year of eligibility wherever he goes. Moving on to Max Johnson, this guy had somewhat of a mediocre season this year as he threw for over 2,800 yards and 27 touchdowns. His season was filled with some minor bumps, with the most obvious being Ed Orgeron being fired during the season. He also lost his best receiver, Kayshon Boutte, to injury, so that couldn't have helped. I think the main reason that he's transferring, though, is because 6th-year QB Miles Brennan will be returning to LSU, which means that Max probably won't get as much playing time. However, Max is only a sophomore, so he has 2 more years of eligibility, and hopefully wherever he goes, he can get the most out of those 2 years. The last thing I'm going to talk about is Travis Hunter's flip to Jackson State. That decision by him is definitely an odd one, and obviously the main reason he went is because of Deion Sanders, but there's also repercussions to this decision. You can make the argument that it could end up hurting his draft stock in the future since he's playing against subpar talent, but to counter that, he's being coached by the greatest defensive back of all time. There's not really much anyone can say on the topic right now because we have yet to see him play in an actual college football game, but it's almost a guarantee that he'll start from day one, and I wouldn't even be surprised if he played both sides. The fact of the matter is that if everything goes horribly wrong at Jackson State, and for some reason he ends up not liking it, then he can just transfer. I'm willing to bet that the number 1 player in the country won't have much trouble finding a school to transfer to if Jackson State doesn't end up working out. There was also some rumors that Travis was given a $1 million NIL deal by Barstool to go to Jackson State, but these have since been shut down by Deion Sanders. I think Travis is one of the best players we've ever seen, so I think it's unlikely that he'll do bad in college wherever he may end up. I'm not saying that he'll be the greatest player of all time, but I think wherever he goes, he'll end up at one point being the best player on that team. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please like and share the video as that helps the channel to grow. Besides that, until next time.